Hi, is it Walter?
Hi, Hung. How are you?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Good, man. Good. Okay, so here's the crack. I just did a podcast on how to be LinkedIn famous. And I
Yep.
went through a few things. And one of the areas that I wanted to jump in and explore a bit more was content.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, who better than call up my old mate, Hung, and get him to explain it like the master does to the pupil?
Hardly. There's so many people that are much better than me at this, but I've got a few techniques that seem to be decent. So yeah, happy to share with you and your audience, Walter.
All right, let's go. Where do we start?
What is there anything in particular that is cause like what was the first thing in your mind when you thought about content on LinkedIn in particular?
Engagement statements. So
Yeah. Okay. Very simple. So one of the predominant thing, if you look at 99% of LinkedIn, is more or less recruiters, right? Recruiter
mhm,
behavior, they're the most active people on LinkedIn. And 99% of those folks are doing exactly the same thing, which is literally getting a job description out there, sharing it, and saying, hey, does anybody know anybody who can do this job or that job?
mhm.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's right. It is a load of old
it's
hat.
it's job distribution, right? So recruiters default to doing job distribution on LinkedIn, whereas what they really should be doing is asking questions of the audience that they're trying to recruit from. And you can do that on a status update. It gives you something like, I don't know, 1,500 characters of text. That's actually a short blog post. You can write something quite interesting that addresses the audience that you're looking to recruit from and try to get them to engage with you. And the structure of this type of blog post, this mini post, if you like, is always fairly similar. It is about making an observation about a particular problem that you've encountered. It is then about addressing a few ideas as to how you solve that problem. And then at the very end, it's about asking whether anybody else can potentially contribute to it. It's a simple 2, 3. If you get those elements right and the topic is interesting and it's connected to the audience you're recruiting from, you should be able to create an engaging post which will get you speaking to the people that eventually you're looking to
So when
recruit
we
from.
look at the big dog out there, Mr. Oleg, um, and
Right.
uh, and his mistress Bridget.
Indeed. So I didn't realize there were a couple, but probably they
Yeah,
should be,
yeah.
right?
Josh Harrelson
Um,
is their illegitimate child.
right,
It
right,
went
right.
wrong. But so is that the framework that they follow? Because they've got a big picture message. It's helping the disenfranchised, and they put themselves as the hero solving it, and then they tend to engage through, did anybody else have this problem? And then all the disenfranchised come back and say, you're my hero, you inspire me, etc.
I would say that I mean, firstly, I know a lot of people denigrate the characters that you mentioned there because they have become characters and caricatures. But I think that, they are just individuals that have actually worked out how to sort of hack this system. To what end or what effect, I don't know, because as I understand, Oleg is a CTO, so I have no idea why he's interested in this type of traffic. But he's been able to do it, and that's worthy of respect. Um, from my view of it, I wouldn't say you necessarily need to adopt that type of style. It's all about what your objective is. So, if I'm a recruiter and I'm looking to hire a certain type of person, I'm probably interested in getting a lot of eyeballs
Mm.
on my job ad, right? So that's the purpose of job distribution, isn't it? You want people to look at this and saying you're recruiting for this role. You want people to know because you think that will be a start of people potentially applying to your job and you eventually fill in the job. Now, I think if you have that type of objective, then it may be you need to amend your
Mm.
approach accordingly, and not necessarily provide that um, the homily style approach, that Oleg and Bridget tend to do, where they create stories that may be apocryphal or not, they get an enormous amount of engagement on it. But I just wonder how much of that is valuable engagement, how much of it is people that will eventually convert something. So
I don't know is the answer to whatever they're selling. I haven't researched them enough, and I do respect that they've been able to game the system as well. So I'm with you on that. But like then when we look at the likes of Mitch Sullivan and Josh, and I know Josh, and he's a really nice guy. What they both do is the same framework. They fish with dynamite. So they'll throw something out there that is controversial and it'll hit a lot of people, and a lot of people will get on their high horse and do it. But most of those people won't get the joke. But the people who do get the joke usually then engage, and that's how they get their inbound traffic.
Yeah, I would step in right away and say that's probably not the right thing for a lot of people to do. I mean, I do know Mitch. I had a chat with him earlier today, actually. Great dude. But he's got a very, very, it's one of those skills to be able to have this type of persona online and get away with it. I think recruiters who have got an operating job to do, you need to fill jobs. You probably don't want to have to create this type of approach artificially in order to just get this type of I won't say fake engagement, because the engagement is probably real, but it's purposeless engagement, right? A better example of this would be a good friend of mine, a guy called Matthias Schmieser, works for Zalando, big European e-commerce company. He was recruiting for a product manager, right? Now, he could very easily have done what every recruiter does, which is get the completed job spec, publish it on LinkedIn and say, hey, does anybody know anybody who can do this job, right? No one would have questioned him if he did that. However, Matthias didn't do this. What he did instead was actually shared the knowledge that shared the information that he was recruiting for this role, but also that the team was in disagreement as to what the role should actually be, right? So he said, hey, listen, folks, we're recruiting for this product manager, but we are in dispute internally as to what this person or this role needs to be. Product engineering thinks it's this, TA thinks it's that, developers think it's a third thing. What do you think? We think it should be this. That type of
so then people get the opportunity to show their knowledge, and they get to debate, and then that creates engagement.
Mate, he got something like 300, I think it was 500,000 views on that post. 1,000+ comments, maybe high hundreds of comments, and of course the people who were commentating on what a product manager should be doing, guess who they were?
The other thing people could do is do what I'm doing right now and trying to steal your audience by having you on because you're a big shot.
I don't think that's stealing. I think it literally is. I would call it piggybacking, but it's really something that I think is totally okay to do. Trust me, it's the quickest way to an audience is doing exactly that. And the reason why it's not stealing is because the audience never migrates. It just has another person that is potentially offering some interesting stuff out there. So, I don't want you to think of that way in our relationship at all, though I'll say this is definitely a case where we're both trying to create some interesting and valuable information for the people out there. And there's going to be someone out there that hopefully can pick something away from it and get a little bit better at their job. I think that's what we're both kind of motivated.
Absolutely. So in closing, last piece of advice that you have for people, if you were to sum it up.
Yep. Oh, the last piece of advice for a recruiter who wants to do a little bit more content. Don't try and be a thought leader. Trust me on this. And I tell you, and this is not because thought leadership per se is bad. It's just thought leadership is hard. If you're setting yourself up as someone who knows X, Y, Z, you need to have deep knowledge of it. You need to have a very well referenced bit of content. You need to be able to defend your argument online to detractors and people who might rebut you, etc., etc., etc. There's a reason why people who are genuine thought leaders do nothing else other than write books and give talks at conferences and stuff like that, because it's a full-time job. The biggest thing that stops recruiters from producing content is this sense that they have to be a thought leader. Don't do that. It's not a target you need to achieve. You shouldn't actually want to get there. What you want to do is to start conversational bits of content that are 70% finished.
Brilliant. Fantastic.
Right? 70% finished. Let the audience come in and fill in the rest of the 30%. That's what engagement is. I'll tell you what, the metaphor, the analogy is this. I call it the Tarantino technique, Dalta. Quentin Tarantino, Pulp Fiction. Everyone's seen that film. I think everyone on the planet has seen that film. It is amazing, right? And all of Tarantino's films follow the same pattern, which is he never completes his argument. He never completes the story.
Yeah, you never get to see inside the box.
Exactly. What's in Marcellus's briefcase? You know what? Tarantino actually answered that question a couple of years ago in an interview at Empire Magazine. Do you know what he said?
Did he say it was his soul?
No, it wasn't Marcellus's soul, but it could have been. He said it's whatever the audience wants it to be.
Well, let's leave it at that. That's a quick insight that I wanted to bring everybody. So thanks very much, Hung, and we'll get you back on to talk about something else you're awesome at.
No worries, Dalta. Have a good look with this project.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.